In a mass stabbing and car ramming incident, the United Kingdom police has shot dead a man believed to be the suspect. The attack has reportedly claimed 2 lives. Meanwhile, 3 civilians remain in critical condition. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has taken cognizance of the matter and will be chairing a Cobra meeting. The United States government shuts down at midnight after Congress failed to agree on a funding deal. Democrats versus Republican deadlock centers around healthcare spending under the Affordable Care Act. Following the U.S. government shutdown, the Trump administration has commenced targeting funding projects in Democratic states. Vice President J.D. Vance has warned of mass layoffs of federal workers. The 8th flotilla bound for Gaza has been intercepted by the Israeli forces. Dozens of activists, including Swedish climate campaigner Greta Thunberg, have been detained. Many countries have denounced Israel's interception of the flotilla. Britain has stated that it expects the situation to be resolved safely, while South Africa has lambasted Israel, terming it as continued violation of international law. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has warned European leaders that Russia has the ability to violate airspace anywhere on the continent. This comes as Zelensky has offered his country's war-honed expertise to help counter air incursion threats. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron has warned that drones violating European airspace will be destroyed. He has emphasized upon readiness to defend territories in the European Union and NATO's eastern flank. This comes amid recent suspected Russian drone and fighter jet incursions. After days of rescue operations, rescuers have now detected no more signs of life at the collapsed Indonesian school in East Java. At least 59 are believed to be missing and buried since Monday. The authorities have confirmed that the death of 6 people has taken place in this tragedy. All right, viewers, those are the headlines in our top focus. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has stated that security is being boosted at synagogues across Britain following a suspected terror attack in Manchester that has left 4 people injured and 2 of whom have now lost their lives. Listen in to what he stated.
The attack in Manchester this morning is absolutely shocking, and all of our thoughts are with those affected. I'm on my way back to London. When I arrive, I will chair an emergency Cobra meeting. I'm already able to say that additional police assets are being deployed to synagogues across the country, and we will do everything to keep our Jewish community safe. I've spoken to Mark Gardner of the CST and Andy Burnham, Mayor of Manchester, and I want to thank the emergency services for the speed of their response.
This comes after the Greater Manchester Police stated that 4 people were wounded after a man drove a vehicle towards pedestrians and carried out a stabbing outside the Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue on Middleton Road in Crumpsall. The suspect was shot dead by the police at the scene. The attack has reportedly now killed 2 people. 3 others, meanwhile, are in a critical condition. Paramedics arrived within 10 minutes and are currently tending to the injured members who suffered wounds from both the vehicle as well as the stabbing. Now, authorities are urging the public to avoid the area as the investigation continues. Meanwhile, the Israeli embassy in London has stated that it condemns the attack carried out in Manchester. Additionally, King Charles III has also reacted, stating that his wife and him have been deeply saddened and shocked to learn of the horrific attack. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Mark Sutherland, geopolitical commentator, joining us from London. Thank you so much, sir, for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. We're seeing a worrying pattern of such attacks targeting places of worship, particularly synagogues, in recent years. We've seen similar such instances in the United States as well, where Jewish people have been targeted for their faith, whether in Boulder in Colorado, Los Angeles and Washington, D.C., and now this attack in Manchester. What, in your assessment, is driving this pattern?
Yeah, good to be with you today, and I'm very saddened by this. The issue is that we have to remember that this is the Day of Atonement. This is the day of Yom Kippur, the most important day within the Jewish religious calendar. So let's put that on the table straight away. We recently in London had a march against anti-Semitism a couple of weeks ago, where 70,000 people were on the streets of London to raise awareness of this. Since the 7th of October, there has been, very sadly, a rise, as you quite rightly pointed out, in regard to attacks upon Jewish people, in regard to attacks on synagogues. And when you've reached a situation like we have in the UK, where very sadly, where Jewish school children are going to school and then they're being advised not to wear anything that identifies them as Jewish, we have now come to an appalling place as a society. And since the 7th of October, this has to be noted, we have seen many, many marches in London, virtually every weekend and around this country in regard to pro-Palestinian marches. That has to be put on the table as well. And that then, if you then have got shouts around the world of globalize the intifada, then people that actually believe in this, that think it's acceptable to have ISIS flags on the streets of London and pro-Hamas commentary and flags as well, then it's not surprising that it builds up this kind of viewpoint. Words matter within our lexicon, and it raises the heat and the temperature deeply in this kind of situation. So then we have this appalling incident where 4 people, now 2 of those have died, and the perpetrator of this then was taken out by the police on the ground very quickly, after attending there very quickly. And then the concerns, because it is all on social media, what else is behind that? What else is behind the background? And what other as that situation then evolves, what else are the police then having to face? And I also do understand that the bomb disposal team from the police is also on the ground as well, Pia. So that's the atmosphere, very sadly, that's been building up in the UK for some time. And remember, within a number of synagogues, having experienced this myself, that they do have their own private security. They're very strict on that, and it's regular conversations. And it's absolutely appalling that we even have to have this conversation or talk about this, but this is the reality for the Jewish community in this country. Thank you, Pia.
Indeed, sir. A quick follow-up. Now, you've pointed out that public discourse, especially online, does contribute to fueling such tragedies. Meanwhile, the British Prime Minister, who's currently in Copenhagen, will be flying back very soon. Cobra meeting is set to be chaired as well with senior government officials in order to respond to this emergency. Code Plato has been declared as well. For the benefit of our viewers, could you explain to us what kind of coordination does such high-level meetings and this particular court now set in motion?
Across his desk, like from whatever, our security agencies will be a regular briefing. The figure has been put out there over the last few weeks that our security agencies are following up to 40,000 people. There are 40,000 people on their list of individuals that they are deeply concerned about and their actions and their ideology. So that is constantly being monitored. And as you can appreciate, 40,000 people was a heck of a lot of people to then follow if you're able to then assign your assets to that, and deeply costly. That within our own nation, there are people that wish to do ill to our nation and to the wonderful citizens of this nation. And we have sadly just seen that as what's just happened in Manchester. But they will be looking at this, and it's very they have to be honest and address ideology. And if you are then dealing with an ideology of jihadism within the UK, they have to be very honest about this. And at times that honesty has not been there, to be very fair, Pia.
So, sir, in your assessment, what action should then the Starmer government take to address especially the growing fears within the Jewish minority community in Britain?
Well, without sounding too sarcastic, if you're going to then recognize a two-state solution within the Middle East, pushed by the Gaza war, and then on the same day you then say wish the Jewish community a happy Rosh Hashanah. What I am pointing out is that you actually need to get your facts right. You need to get your beliefs right. And the bottom line is, as you are fully aware, that on the south coast of our country, we have an open border. We have no border. We have illegal immigrants coming over every single day. And we do not know at times who is actually coming in to the country. In the past, whether we're dealing with people like Chowdhury and various other hate preachers, we've had people saying on the streets things that are profoundly unacceptable to our Western civilization. But on the other hand, then you could say, well, you then have free speech. But then people have pushed that and then pushed an ideology of hate. And we have, sadly, over the last 15 to 20 years, we've had very much of this, and we have needed to then take action in these situations, and sometimes we have, but we have not taken stringent action that needs to be done. The other thing is that when people are also looking to various groups they think that this is their voter base, that raises a load of other questions. We want people to come into this country to respect our culture, respect the UK, and respect the law, the rule of law. When people don't do that, then we've got to deal with that. As you know, this raises so many questions. At times it's not easy, but on the other hand, it is. The kind of actions that have happened today, which are deplorable and disgusting, they have to be weeded out. And yes, okay, we have to think of those families, and our prayers are with them, absolutely. But the big issue is to say, why have we arrived at this point? And there have been many people for many years talking about that and warning about that, and sadly, those warnings have not been heeded, in my humble opinion. Thank you, Pia.
All right, so I request you to stay on with us. We're tracking further updates, this time from the Middle East. Now, Israel has stated that none of the vessels in the Gaza-bound flotilla carrying pro-Palestinian activists and humanitarian aid have broken through its blockade of the Palestinian territory. The Israeli Foreign Ministry has added that one vessel is still at a distance, and if it tries to approach, its attempt to enter the active combat zone and breach the blockade will be stopped. Meanwhile, world leaders have condemned Israel's interception. Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin has in fact described the flotilla as a humanitarian mission that poses no threat to anyone, and has stated that the treatment of those on the flotilla is very important. Listen in.
I'm receiving briefings in terms of the interception of the Gaza Flotilla. Our ambassador is in touch with the Israeli authorities, and we will be providing consular assistance to those who have been detained. It's important that they're treated properly. It's a humanitarian mission, no threat to anybody other than to highlight and also to bring humanitarian aid into the people of Gaza. And it underlines the absolute imperative of getting humanitarian aid into Gaza as quickly as possible under the auspices of the United Nations and the Red Crescent, as outlined in the peace proposals that emanated from the United States in consultation with the Arab states. If it happened in international waters, yes. And also, again, the treatment of those on the flotilla is very important, that they're treated appropriately and properly. They don't pose a threat to anybody.
earlier, Israeli forces intercepted 39 boats carrying aid and foreign activists to Gaza, leaving only one vessel still sailing towards the Palestinian territory. Meanwhile, Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre has highlighted that the mission underscores the urgent need for aid to reach Gaza. He stressed that assistance should be delivered through established channels such as the United Nations and well-trained organizations. Meanwhile, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has also praised the solidarity shown by Spanish society with the flotilla's aims and has confirmed that his government is in contact with Israel to ensure the protection of those who have now been detained. Take a look.
Well, it illustrates that we need to get desperate needed aid to Gaza. And I think the main thing here is to get in aid through the established channels and let the UN and the well-trained organizations distribute that aid. And then I just have to say that Israel should respect, international law and treat this in a cautious way.
Hemos estado en contacto permanente con ellos, como ha dicho el ministro de Exteriores Álvarez. También hemos trasladado al gobierno israelí el que es necesario que protejan los derechos de no solamente nuestros compatriotas, sino todos los integrantes de la flotilla.
Joining us on the broadcast is Mr. David K. Johnson. He is an American author, professor of criminal justice, journalism, law, and political science at Rochester Institute of Technology, joining us from New York. Thank you for taking our time speaking to us on NewsX World. Now, this is not the first time that Greta Thunberg and other such activists have been detained for doing so. She was in fact earlier sent back safe and sound on a chartered plane a couple of months back. But if we take a look at the aim of the flotilla, it is to ensure the transfer of humanitarian aid. There have been concerns that the United Nations has been pointing out as well regarding the dire situation on the ground. But in the meantime, Israel had in fact called for the flotilla to change its course and had offered to transfer aid through safe channels, including through the port of Cyprus as well. And they had pointed out that if the flotilla attempts to breach the blockade, they will be detained. At the same time, we've also seen a 20-point plan jointly floated by Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu that provides for humanitarian aid to be allowed into the Gaza Strip. Now, the ball is in Hamas's court. Do you think they will accept this plan?
No, Hamas is not going to do anything cooperative. But what you're seeing here with these ships is something the Israelis have been doing now for more than a quarter century. They have been interdicting anyone who is trying to bring aid or food. The Israeli government maintains that there have to be weapons of one kind or another to help Hamas. And their official statements, they call it the Hamas Sumud Flotilla. Sumud is a Palestinian term meaning resistance and prideful, and it uses as its symbol a pregnant woman or an olive branch, olive tree. And the Israelis are, I have to say, not only being successful with the blockade, but they are doing an incredible job under Prime Minister Netanyahu of turning Israel into a pariah state. Governments from Malaysia to Ireland to Turkey, which is threatening to find some way to prosecute, that won't happen, but they're threatening, are all appalled by this action of the Israeli government that has been interdicting ships on the high seas. 75 miles out is not territorial waters. It's illegal conduct, and it's part of what we're seeing governments around the world do. Ignore well-established law to pursue whatever their short-term political goals are.
And what, in your assessment, could then lead to long-term peace in the Middle East?
There's not going to be long-term peace in the Middle East in my lifetime or perhaps yours. The necessary element is regard for the other. And so long as either side has leaders, or in the case of Gaza, people who've been forced upon the people as leaders, you're going to have a lack of regard. And without regard for other people being your equal, being human beings. There's just not going to be any kind of settlement here. And these issues go back long before the creation of the Israeli state more than 75 years ago.
All right, so I request you to stay on with us as we're tracking further developments. With that, viewers, we shift our focus to more news coming in. Russia has now criticized the recent restoration of UN sanctions against Iran, calling the move illegal and driven by Western powers. The sanctions, including an arms embargo, were reinstated on 27 September through a process known as snapback, initiated by European countries. Russia now says that European actions bypassed UN Security Council requirements and have manipulated the system, making the UN the main victim. Moscow insists that the snapback mechanism cannot be considered complete and has warned that the West's continuing confrontational approach risks deepening the crisis over Iran's nuclear program. Listen in to what Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova had to say.
Пресловутый снэпбэк, вот та самая механика, тот самый механизм возврата санкций не может считаться состоявшимся. Утверждение об обратном – это преднамеренное искажение реальности, и добавить к этому по существу просто нечего, кроме крайней озабоченности в связи с продолжающейся конфронтационной линией Запада, которая, прикрываясь пустыми разговорами о своей приверженности дипломатии и международному праву, неправомерными действиями ведет к глубокому системному кризису вокруг иранской ядерной программы.
Shifting our focus to the United States of America, we're now learning that the White House has announced the dismissal of most members of the National Council on the Humanities, retaining only 4 appointees from the Trump administration. The council, composed of 26 scholars and humanities leaders serving 6-year terms, advises the chair of the National Endowment for Humanities on policy, grant making, and funding decisions. By law, a council of 14 members is required to hold official meetings, and all new appointments must be confirmed by the Senate. Now, this move comes amid heightened political turmoil in Washington, especially as the U.S. Congress failed to pass a funding legislation putting hundreds of thousands of federal workers at risk of being furloughed. Still with us on the broadcast is Professor David K. Johnson. Sir, what do you read into as far as this particular move by the Trump administration is concerned? Most of the members of the National Council on Humanities, they've been dismissed, and only 4 appointees who were appointed by the Trump administration have been retained.
Well, Donald has no interest in any kind of art whatsoever that doesn't have gold in it. He's the only president in more than 100 years who has never invited a single musician or performer or singer to come to the White House, which of course almost anybody, especially an American, would happily do. He's a Philistine in cultural terms. And Donald, whom I've known and covered for now more than 37 years, has always been like this. He has no appreciation of arts and humanities. And by kneecapping this agency, removing 22 of the 26 scholars who are there, he's simply furthering his attack on higher education. Higher education has been central to the wealth the United States has built up since World War II. It is universities, by and large, that carry out the basic science research that is responsible for more than half of the economic growth in the United States in the last 75 years. And Trump understands none of this. He has a college degree, but he didn't earn it. It was given to him. And he is just appallingly ignorant. And Donald follows, a lot of people in business, and that's where Donald comes from, follow the practice of it's better to seek forgiveness than permission. But Donald's position as president is, I don't need to seek your permission. I don't need your forgiveness. I will do whatever I want. I have an Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution that says I can do anything I want. He is a de facto dictator, and he is working to consolidate his power, and part of doing that is intimidating the academy, the professoriate.
And And in your assessment, what are the implications of this mass dismissal that has taken place with regards to policy decisions, especially in terms of funding for the humanities is concerned?
Well, the people around Donald Trump, notably a man named Russell Vought, who runs the very powerful Office of Management and Budget, are of the view that this is improper activity for the United States, that we should not be spending one taxpayer dollar to promote the arts, to promote humanities, to make grants to poets. They see this as deeply offensive to the American Constitution, which I think would be a big surprise to the framers of the Constitution, most of whom were sophisticated, cultured people. Trump's goal all the way along, and I've been warning people about this for at least 14 years, is to just burn down Washington. In the first time Trump was in the White House, they said, you know, our goal here is to, quote, deconstruct the administrative state, close quote, which is just obfuscating language for burn down Washington as we've known it. The goal is total power for Donald Trump and whoever, if he can arrange for his own successor, whoever succeeds him. It is not for running a competent, democratic, popular government.
Tip with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting our focus towards Africa, where we're now learning that there's been a fresh surge of violence in Central and Western Africa, which has now reportedly left Christian communities reeling, fueling growing concerns that Christians are being targeted across the region. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, at least 64 people were brutally killed in early September when Islamist groups stormed the village of Nutonya in North Kivu province. Now, the Toyo attack follows other reports of atrocities where 40 people were killed during a prayer service in July in the Ituri region, and more than 70 bodies were in fact discovered earlier this year in a church in Luberto, out of which many were decapitated. US comedian Bill Maher has criticized the media, stating that there is silence on genocide of Christians in Nigeria. With us on the broadcast is Mr. Mark Sutherland. Thank you so much for your patience, sir. Of course, we've been seeing an increased incidence in such cases of violence against Christians in Africa, particularly Western Africa. Bill Maher coming out and pointing out that there's very little talk, very little discourse, whether online or in the media, regarding these attacks that have taken place targeting Christians. Why do you think so?
Pierre, thank you. It's great to hear Bill Maher say what he has been saying, to raise this issue, to bring attention to this issue, because this has been going on since 2014 and 15 in great earnest, whether that's Boko Haram or the Fulani tribe, where it's Islamism and then coming against Christians. We have to remember that half of Nigeria is Christian, and when you've got Boko Haram, which means Western education is forbidden, it just shows you the kind of ideology that they are then dealing with. There is a report that says that up to at this present time, 30 Christians a day are being killed. That since January this year, that is up to 7,000, just over 7,000 that has been murdered. It is not in the press in the way that it should do, and as some people would say sarcastically, if it comes down to Africa, no, it's not going to be in the press, and it needs to be. This is an appalling situation that has been going on in northern Nigeria for a long time. We remember when Michelle Obama, when Boko Haram, they kidnapped the schoolgirls, and then was raising that issue. But as Bill Maher said, quite rightly, and I take my hat off to him, considering where he would even position himself politically and ideologically, and he is moving that needle, I believe, is that he has raised this issue. People are go on about what is happening in Gaza between the Hamas and Israel, and say there's a genocide. My humble opinion, no, there isn't, and then refer to not referring to what is actually happening in Nigeria. There's been 2 reports that have come out, and one particularly taken to the UN to raise all of this. And this does need to go up to the news agenda, because this is a genuine genocide, which is to then kill Christians in Nigeria. Pia.
And so in your assessment, what is exacerbating the communal fault lines in Nigeria, and what must be done to tackle this?
The other issue is you have to look at the actual Nigerian government, which is a Muslim government, which is then following Islam, and there is this reign of terror. And as I say again, you've got half the country that is Christian. When you've also reached a point when within the legal system that there is no redress when these murders take place. There has been a report done from a legal a group that have raised this as well, that there is then no justice that people can then take forward. So there is a concern, as I say, about the legal system, and of course that legal system is then being turned to create tyranny, to then oppress Christians that you don't agree with their faith. And I would say this is that sadly, if any ideology is not strong enough to be able to sit down and have a courteous debate, and then immediately resorts to death and the destruction in the way that they are doing, then we have to seriously question that ideology, and they have to look inward and say, well, what do we believe and what can we stand on? And when they behave in this way, in this violent way, then people have to believe them for how they are actually going to conduct themselves. The issue is, Pia, that this is from a government level and comes down, and that people, when, as I say, they want redress, and if that is not allowed within their system, also that is a huge problem. You have to change that, and you have to seek that for justice to be balanced.
It needs a systemic solution in your assessment, sir. Thank you so much for taking out time, sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World today. Due to paucity of time, it's a wrap on this bulletin. Viewers, more news and updates on the